You send a message, it's simple, just a few words. And then you stare at the screen. You read it again and again. You start wondering if it sounded too cold, or too eager, or too weird. You notice the punctuation. Should you have added a smiley face? Should you remove it? Was that okay to dry? Should it be okay? And before you know it, something that took 5 seconds to write turns into 5 minutes of thinking, 10 minutes of waiting, and maybe an hour of quiet anxiety. If that feels familiar, you're not alone. Or overthinking, or being too sensitive. What if your brain is actually doing exactly what it was designed to do? Just a little too well. Imagine this. You send a message to someone you care about. Maybe it's a friend. Maybe it's someone you like. Maybe it's someone whose opinion matters more than you want to admit. And the moment you hit send, your brain doesn't relax. It switches on. It starts scanning. Not just for their reply, but for meaning. Because to your brain, communication isn't just about words. It's about signals. Subtle ones, emotional ones, the kind that can't always be seen directly. A short reply might mean they're busy, or it might mean they're losing interest, or it might mean you said something wrong, and your brain, it doesn't want to guess wrong. So it runs simulations over and over again. This is something psychologists often link to what's called threat detection. Your mind is constantly trying to predict social outcomes because for most of human history, being rejected by the group wasn't just Connection meant safety. Disconnection meant risk. So when you're overthinking a message, you're not just thinking about words. You're thinking about belonging. Now here's where it gets even more interesting. People who overthink messages tend to have a heightened sensitivity to emotional nuance. They notice tone, timing, patterns. They pick up on things other people might completely ignore, and that can be a strength. But in text-based communication, it becomes a problem because text strips away context. There's no voice, no facial expression, no immediate feedback. So your brain tries to fill in the gaps. And when it doesn't have enough information, it fills those gaps with possibilities. Not always positive ones. That's why a simple K can feel like a door closing. That's why seeing without a reply can feel like silence getting louder. And that's why you might find yourself rereading conversations like you're analyzing a piece of literature, searching for hidden meaning in every word. But here's something most people don't realize. Overthinking messages isn't really about the message. It's about control, or more specifically, the lack of it. When you talk to someone in person, you can adjust in real time. You can see their reactions. You can correct yourself instantly. There's a feedback loop. But texting, you send something, and then you wait. And in that waiting, your brain loses its sense of control. So it tries to regain it the only way it knows how, by thinking more, rewriting the past message in your head, predicting every possible outcome. It's like your mind is trying to solve a puzzle that doesn't have enough pieces, and the less control you feel, the more your brain tries to compensate. Now let's talk about something you might not expect. You don't overthink messages from people you don't care about. You don't replay a text to a random coworker 10 times before sending it. But when it's someone who matters, now it's not just about communication. It's about impression, connection, possibility, and your brain treats that like something important. So it slows everything down. It becomes cautious, careful, maybe even a little protective. But here's the paradox. The more you care, the more your mind tries to protect you. And sometimes that protection looks like overthinking. Now, think about this. Have you ever written a message and then deleted it and rewritten it multiple times? Not because you didn't know what to say, but because you were trying to say it perfectly. That's not just overthinking, that's emotional precision. You're trying to communicate in a way that won't be misunderstood, won't be rejected, won't create the wrong impression. And again, that comes from awareness. But there's a hidden cost. Because communication isn't meant to be perfect. It's meant to be human. And humans are messy. They pause. They misspeak. They say things imperfectly. But in text, there's pressure to edit that messes out, to present a cleaner version of yourself, and when you combine that with a brain that's already tuned into detail, you get overthinking. Now let's go deeper. There's a concept in psychology called intolerance of uncertainty. Some people are more comfortable with not knowing, others aren't. If you fall into the second group, your brain doesn't like open-ended situations, and texting is full of them. You don't know how they read your message. You don't know what they felt. You don't know when they'll respond. So your brain tries to close that uncertainty by imagining outcomes, by preparing for them, by thinking through every possible scenario. But here's the catch. Uncertainty can't always be solved. Sometimes it has to be tolerated. And for someone who overthinks, that's the hardest part. Now, I want you to notice something. When you're overthinking a message, your body is involved too. It's not just mental. Your chest might feel tight. Your stomach might feel uneasy. You might check your phone more often than you'd like to admit. That's because your brain is treating the situation like a mild threat. Not a physical one, but a social one. And social threats can feel just as real. So your system stays alert, waiting, monitoring, reacting. But what if we shift the perspective for a moment? What if overthinking messages isn't a flaw? What if it's a sign of something else? A sign that you're attentive, that you care, that you're emotionally aware enough to recognize that communication has weight. Because not everyone does that. Some people send messages without thinking at all. They don't consider tone, they don't consider impact, they don't consider how the other person might feel, but you do, and that matters. The goal isn't to stop thinking. It's to stop assuming that every thought is a warning, because not every pause means rejection. Not every short reply means disinterest, and not every delay is about you. Sometimes people are just busy. Sometimes they're distracted. Sometimes they're overthinking their reply to you. And that's the part we often forget. You're not the only one on the other side of the screen with a mind full of thoughts. Now imagine this. Instead of rereading your message 10 times, you send it and you let it exist. Not as a perfect reflection of who you are, but as a real one. You allow space for misunderstanding, for imperfection, for natural human communication. That doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop trying to control what you can't control. Because at the end of the day, a message is just a moment. Not a definition, not a final judgment, just a moment. And the person who truly understands you, they won't be looking for perfection in your words, they'll be looking for you. So the next time you catch yourself staring at that screen, wondering if you said the right thing, pause, take a breath, and remind yourself, you're not overthinking because something is wrong with you. You're overthinking because your mind is trying to protect something that matters. And maybe, just maybe, that's not something you need to fix. It's something you need to understand. If this felt a little too familiar, I'd love to hear from you. Do you overthink messages? Or are you the one who replies with just K?